This is Bam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Joe Jacobson. You're a mindset coach and addiction recovery specialist. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. How are
Well,
you?
I'm doing great. It's always fun. We've been doing podcasting since 2016. This is episode 1132 of the Fam
Nice.
Electric Ghost podcast. If people
Yeah.
want to check out, we are a featured podcast on the Newsly network. You see that little icon up there says listen on Newsly. You check out coupon code GHOST. You can use that platform for 30 days without having to pay. We'll be on Newsly later today as a featured podcast. We do have your Instagram link there, the Instagram.com, Joe underscore Graham underscore program. That will be fully clickable for people who want to check that out. And before we start getting into telling your story, we always ask every guest a couple of questions. One of the first questions we ask is like, what motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Yeah, great question. So, what motivates me now is to be the best version of me possible, essentially self mastery. For a long time, I was ignoring the call of my conscience, and I knew to a pretty certain degree that that was the meaning of life was to be the best version of you can be. And I was just kind of ignoring it because I was in a lot of pain
Mhm.
and trying to, mask the pain as easy as possible. But yeah, what motivates me now, because it feels so much better to do this, is self mastery and, and starting with just each day. So crushing each day, stacking wins, and that's what's made me feel the best.
In terms trying to tell your story, like self mastery is something that people kind of have to get over themselves. A lot of times, some people have, imposter syndrome, or they got kind of self defeating limitations. They just don't have like an open mindset because they've been kind of maybe locked in some dogma that they got in childhood. So maybe you want to tell your story. Like, hey, I know your history. You've been working with addiction and recovery. So I don't know where you want to begin in telling your story.
Absolutely. So self worth and self love is going to be the foundation of any change, because a lot of the pain of that us addicts try to mask comes from self worth, and to make the decision to start, mastering daily habits and to build the best version of you, there's an element of needing to love yourself and say I'm worth being the best version of me possible, because my self-talk was horrific. I mean,
Mhm.
horrific. Like, I would be in relationships and I would sometimes say it out loud and my girlfriend would be like, "That's how you talk to yourself?" Like, that's, and if you're calling yourself how is that, or what language are we allowed to use?
I can be fully explicit. I'm
Yeah.
a
Okay.
mature podcast, so you can do what you
Sure.
want.
Okay. So if you're calling yourself a piece of shit all day, I mean, pieces of shit don't deserve
Yeah.
better lives. So, you have to kind of nip that in the bud first, and you don't have to necessarily, but like fully believe it uh, to start the process. You'll
Hmm.
start stacking wins, and then you'll feel better about yourself. But really, the only thing you need to change is the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of changing, and that's certainly where I got. Yeah.
Did that come from your like family life, or like did you have like a narcissist in your life, or like a background where somebody was like saying you're not worth anything, like a parent, or was that coming from something else?
Quite the opposite, actually, but it ended up in the same place. So I had kind of the picturesque upbringing. I'm from Lake Oswego, Oregon, which is one of the ritziest suburbs outside of Portland. And I never had to work hard for anything, and I always had a safety net. But one of the things and the caveats that comes with that is if you do everything for your child, give them the best life possible, and do everything for them, you accidentally um, rob them of their confidence, rob them of their self worth, because
Mm.
they're not problem solving themselves, so they don't build confidence by overcoming those small things. And So when I got to college and actually had to start dealing with hard emotional things like breakups or, um, being in college, it'd be, I guess, classwork, discipline. I didn't have any coping mechanisms or strong habits, and so any minor distresses, I would just drink away.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that was that like I went to college and I know that the atmosphere in college kind of like there's a lot of self control, and
Hmm.
so if you don't have that discipline, you can easily get led down like the wrong paths because there are people that like you finally don't have parental control around you,
Hmm.
and then there are people that have bad habits all around, and if you don't
Yeah.
have the self discipline or the self worth, you can fall right into it. But that can happen in high
Absolutely.
school. So like, was alcohol something that was around you, and maybe that you didn't have good examples of how to handle it?
Absolutely. So I remember for one reason or another, all of my role models when I was a freshman or sophomore, looking up to juniors and seniors, all of my role models were, I found out later, not the right people. I remember uh, mentioning to someone like, "Oh, I look up to them," and they were like, "Why?" Like, and it was because they partied, they were gay, they were pulling chicks, they were cool, and
Mhm.
I certainly prioritized um, status over yeah, discipline and a lot of other positive things like working hard in school. I cared more about being cool
In
and
crowd.
yeah, and because of that, I wasn't, because you're not, I wasn't focusing on myself. I was, and probably not coming, I know for sure not coming from an authentic place. Um, but yeah, I don't know why, I don't quite know why, I was drawn to those, bad examples, but, for one reason or another, I was. And so alcohol played a role in this, like on weekends, I would drink. I didn't start drinking daily and really becoming, yeah, dependent until I would say college. So it was weekends, and I had a lot of inferiority issues and insecurities that I would mask, as we all do. I mean, when
Mhm.
you're growing up, it's important to process those in a healthy way, and I never did. And so I found out, I mean, 20 years later, that they were still um, affecting and poisoning my choices because I'd never dealt with those insecurities still. I'd been masking them for the last 20 years. So,
So I guess one of the things that I live in an artist community, and a lot of us like we kind of lean on our vulnerability.
mhm,
Like a lot of us learn how to process our pain through our art. So it's like art therapy. So it seems like you didn't have a good outlet other than maybe the addictive path to express vulnerability or all those things that you run into in terms of life when you grow up and you hit those walls. You don't have a calm ocean. Like
mhm,
you have the waves, you have the storms. And if you don't have a way to like process it and kind of shake it off, then
mhm.
it gets internally like it becomes like poisonous.
Yeah. And I did have an outlet for expressing it. I am a guitarist and, multi instrumentalist and songwriter.
Oh
And
wow,
so
sounds good.
yeah, I would write songs about this pain, and yeah, I was romanticizing. There is something romantic about these alcoholics and just the sadness of not being able to turn it around. There's something romantic about it. And so I would write these songs about my pain, and I was seeking validation of. I wanted to move people with these songs.
Mhm.
In a similar way, like Leaving Las Vegas is a great movie
Yeah,
example of like,
yeah.
wow, man, it just hits you. So I was kind of, uh, but I got stuck in this negative feedback loop
Mhm.
where, I'm seeking validation. I want people to say, wow, his pain is so,
Deep.
uh,
Yeah.
it, Yeah, and
Kind of like
but then
Tom Waits. Tom Waits, like he
yeah,
gets kind of in that. Like I don't know if you want to be Tom. Like you look at what Tom Waits does, but do you really want to experience the way life he's experienced it? Because do you
yeah,
have to be in that kind of chaos
hmm
to actually be an artist, or can you kind of step out of it?
yeah. No, it's a dilemma because I know I kind of gravitate um, towards chaos. Maybe not now in my sober life and disciplined life, but there is, yeah, something exciting about things never being the same, and I'm pretty spontaneous,
Hmm.
um, and so it did, yeah, and it wasn't even like a choice to be like one of them. It was more all of my heroes are dysfunctional people.
Hmm. Yeah,
You know,
it seems to
whether
be
it's yeah, whether it's like Louis C.K. in the comedy world, or I mean,
John Belushi.
yeah,
There's always examples. Jim Morrison. The
yeah,
Jazz Joplins, the Hendrix. Like, do
hmm
you have to go down that road, or could you survive? And be like a Dylan, like Neil Young.
hmm
They didn't have to be a victim of that, right?
right,
They found a way to not be in the 28 club or 27 club.
yeah, yeah,
So how can you avoid that? But it's romanticized, like
yeah,
Jack Kerouac. There's
hmm
like beat poets. It's like a certain like mindset in the art community. It's like, well, yeah, you got to be down in the dumps. You got to be like on the downward spiral
hmm
to have legitimacy. You kind of got to be like the starving artist, physically, socially, mentally,
yeah,
spiritually. You can't be happy,
yeah.
and that's probably not the right path for certain people because it would lead to like that loop. The feedback loop
Yeah,
never
yeah.
stops.
And then on the other side of the spectrum, I love rap, but I don't listen to it as much as other genres. But where they're rapping almost exclusively about all their wins and about their,
Yeah.
baller ass lifestyle, and I can't,
Well, I'm the best. I'm better than doing the dozens. Like I'm better
yeah,
than you. I'm strong than you. I have everything.
yeah,
It's just
G-Wagon,
kind of
G-Wagon,
degradation.
G-Wagon.
Yeah, degradation to the extreme.
Yeah,
Uh, it's like which pendulum do you swing on? Do you
yeah,
go one way or the other? Do you try to find, like I'm a Buddhist, like the balance? Like
yeah,
how do I find, like when you're in the arts or you're in life, like things are going to swing around,
yeah,
and you kind of have to figure out, like, how do I center myself? I know I can't always be in the center,
yeah.
and life's not going to be that way, but
hmm
like how can I kind of shake things off and get to a balance?
Right, country music. Yeah,
Yeah, well, even Johnny Cash had a
yeah,
problem. Like he was the Man in Black. It's like, yeah, it's like click
uh,
clack train thing, but it was like maybe that's a little too much too.
yeah. And that's yeah, pre-country, pre-modern country. No.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not outlaw country.
yeah, there you go.
But like in terms of overcoming addiction, it seems like it's a path, right? Like it's like people have the 12 step, but then it's like you gotta stay like on that train. You can't really get off, right? Like once you realize you're an addict, you have to find a way to process things in your life, right? And a continuum, right?
hmm Yeah, and I feel like there's a couple different schools of thought on it. Because for 15 years I've considered myself an alcoholic. But once I got on my program, alcohol just kind of fell away. It wasn't like a choice to necessarily stop drinking. So I think one of the issues with AA is it emphasizes, removing the something from your life.
Hmm.
But if you're not like getting into the gym, or eating the right foods, for instance,
Yeah.
you can still feel really shitty. Like I'm not joking. Like I had a foot long Subway cookie recently, and it
Oh,
felt like I started drinking again. Like I
that's a lot
I
of sugar.
yeah, I had to like go home, and it messed up like the next day too. I mean, I'm not joking. I was hungover from a Subway cookie. So there's a lot more that goes into health than just no longer taking, something.
Yeah, there are
poisonous.
other
Like,
things.
yeah,
There are other things that can trigger you, like there's too much caffeine, too much sugar, too
hmm
much carbo, too much anything, too
yeah,
much like input. Like if you get too into certain inputs in life, right, they can become addictive.
yeah.
You could be like on Instagram, and you're just like looking for the post like all day long. Like that,
Right, right.
like what that's a problem too.
Yeah, well, and I think with social media, because I had um, really crippling anxiety and depression for all of my early adulthood and up until now. And now I'm really active on social media because it's how I show what worked for me. So I'm posting all the time, all day, and I'm also supporting the others in my community doing the same. And I realized that if you're working on yourself and putting in personal development, then all of the negative effects of social media that you know Congress people are scared that are impacting negatively our children. They
Mhm.
actually none of that will occur if people even if they're kids that are trying to master their day, living their best selves. They're really active. They're eating healthy. They're um, exercising a lot. They're building confidence in various ways. Those I don't think those people will have the same sort of anxiety response. I think that really comes from not from lack of discipline.
Yeah.
Um, and because I know like it wasn't if I saw people crushing it, jumping out of airplanes in different countries with a like hot girl, whatever, by a pool or something. Like it wasn't necessarily the result that I was jealous of. It was like the fact that they're they seem completely put together in every way.
Mhm.
They were fit, had money. Um,
The
they were
influencer thing.
excited
Yeah. Yeah,
excited
the
about life.
influencer. Yeah, because
Yeah.
but the thing about the influencers, like they show you their best life.
hmm
They show you the best thing, but it's like you don't know behind the scenes. It's like there could be a lot of other things besides what you see.
hmm
Um, and so I think that the danger with certain people is like they think what they see is everything.
Yeah.
And it's
Correct.
a matter of like everybody shows you their best self,
hmm
right? Everybody shows you their best look. They show you the mask they want you to see.
Yeah.
And so you have to have put things in perspective. It's like nobody's perfect.
Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, even these influencers, I think some kids get caught up. It's like, oh, that's the archetype I need to be. They're perfect. It's like that, that's not the story. Like,
Sir, yeah. I mean, I agree. And but my point was more to that. I mean, to show the behind the scenes thing. Like when you're following the work, which I'll get to in a sec. You don't have the same sort of negative like responses or depressions in life that most ordinary people have to dig themselves out of. So so it really is all the same. Like when you're vibrating at a high frequency, it doesn't really
mm,
matter if you're having the best thing happen to you or like yesterday, my car was breaking down all day. I had to call AAA 4 times, and I have a video about how uh, I it just was hardly bothering me at all. I
yeah,
spent the whole day dealing with the car thing, and then I couldn't even get it resolved. It's not going to be done by Tuesday, but I was still like vibrating high the whole time.
yeah, you can roll
So
off. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you found a way to not get triggered. Like
yeah.
I think that's the thing is like once you get to that place, like the frequency. I'm a musician,
hmm
so I get it. Like
hmm
you hit that universal key that keeps you like in balance.
yeah.
So you can like all kinds of bad things could happen. They could have threw you off like when you were not in that space. If you're not in that kind of in that
Flow
zone.
state.
Yeah, if you're in the flow state, you don't get tripped up. Like
Yeah,
you could be given a speech, but if you're in the mindset, like, I gotta stick to the script instead
yeah,
of like situational awareness, right?
yeah.
Like, like the comic, like they're bombing, they immediately course correct,
Right.
and you don't even realize they were bombing because they adjust. But if
Yeah.
you're the kind of mindset like I gotta stick to the script no matter what, but then
Then you're screwed.
you're gonna go down in flames because like
Yeah.
you gotta have situational awareness
Yeah.
to where you are. You're like,
Like, well, that didn't work. Yeah. And then people start laughing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think a lot of anxiety and depression and comparison, it totally melts away when you start putting in the work. And I'll kind of go over just the five main things that got me to a better space in like almost immediately. It
Hmm.
was an early wake up, 4 a.m. or earlier. Now I wake up at 3:30, but I started out at 4. It is weight training, um, reading and reflecting, reading personal development material, um, tracking daily macronutrients, so proteins, carbs, fat, and then dropping all vices. No drugs, no alcohol. And when you implement those 5 daily habits, your life will change within just a week. You'll become a completely different person. Versus if you just stop drinking or stop using drugs, you're operating at such a low frequency because your brain's not producing the right chemicals. And so it's just you're gonna have a much harder time than if you're, you know, doing the other 4 things: eating healthy, waking up early, hitting the gym, and like reading good material that like self-help. And yeah, if those are non-negotiable daily tasks, so you don't negotiate with yourself anymore. I pop out of bed at 3:30. Even I went to bed at midnight last night and still popped out of bed at 3:30. It's second nature now. Um, but that it just instills in you so much confidence. The work instills the worth, and so I I can go into situations now where I used to be just completely crippled with insecurity and need crutches, need booze as some sort of liquid courage. Where now I'm just like I am dope. Like and then you also look around, you're like, holy cow, I'm outworking everyone. Like just by these 5 things, because it's not easy necessarily, but it is incredibly simple. And then,
Hmm.
but you look around, you're like, holy shit, no one else is doing this. Like in just a few days, I'm already outworking every single person in front of me. Like so, and then that builds so much confidence in you that you can handle. When shit starts coming your way, you're just like, psh, like I'm imposing suffering on myself on a daily basis. Like, what can you throw at me? Like yeah, it's like I make myself suffer. You, you can't do anything.
But in terms of like your the how do you embrace like happiness? Like a lot of times, like some people, like before they find a way to shift their mindset, like the food made them happy, or they, how do you satisfy those cravings and not have something like a negative thing? Like as an artist, like I get into like just be happy, take a walk in the woods. I'm in New Hampshire.
Hmm.
I'll just go for a walk in the woods. I go ride my mountain bike. I'll go jump on my skateboard. I'll go play with my cat.
Sure.
Something, the simple things that can make you happy that don't have to be super complex or
Hmm.
super hard. But you have the things in life. You got your goals,
Hmm.
the things that you got to get, your weight training, your physical training, your discipline for your nutrition, and other things they'll kind of keep you on a discipline path. But what
Hmm.
about the things to just like have some satisfaction in life?
Well, I would argue that if if you're still drinking even just a little bit, if you're, not disciplined with your wake up or your exercise on a daily basis, um, I would argue that your opinions towards your own happiness are flawed. You don't actually know yourself yet. And I know that from personal experience. Like had no, I started to become aware that I even just a little bit of vices was cutting off like the message of my conscience, or muting it temporarily. But you don't actually really know yourself until you implement these things. So if you feel like, oh, I need a balance in life, I can't do this. It's like, okay, well, your opinion is also flawed because you're not operating from your highest self yet. So why don't you spend some time to just implement these 5 habits, drop drugs and alcohol for a month, and implement these 5 things, and then tell me, then come talk to me and say like, oh yeah, I that it was the same, that your thoughts on happiness were the same as they were before. You're coming from a flawed perspective when you have any of these vices and you have an opinion on your own happiness. You truly don't know yourself yet.
But if you can have happiness without vices, like
Oh yeah, you certainly do. Like joy. I mean,
joy.
joy. So the human emotion frequency chart. Enlightenment is at the top, and then it goes peace and love and joy. These are the highest frequencies. And then at the lowest, you have shame, guilt, um, fear, anger, things like that. And so you 100%, when you implement habits on a daily basis throughout the entire day that are raising your frequencies, I mean, your joy is on levels like I'm coming from. I was also a former meth addict, and meth releases so much dopamine that, I mean, it's insane. And this is still, the way I feel now is still better than the hardest drug on the planet. Like joy is way better than meth. Like real joy. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like
Uh,
if you can retrain and remap your brain, a
mhm,
lot of Eastern philosophies, you can release, through better practices. Like if you start to get that discipline with in your body, but also your mind. If you can retrain your mind and you can like embrace wisdom or embrace like teaching, like embrace actually, connecting with other human beings and being,
mhm,
being like a sensei, you like actually
yeah,
teaching other people, communicating that you can feel that kind of dopamine rush from other things. That your mind is so powerful that you can get yourself into that state or a higher state than you ever did with anything external, which is
100%.
is a kind of mind training, remapping, reprogramming
Mhm.
yourself to embrace that. And that's it seems like, oh, some people, that's foo foo. It's like, no, it's not food. There's a way to do this, but you have to believe it. You have to get into it. You have to practice. You have to do the work.
Yeah, yeah. You just have to do the work, and I'm glad you mentioned communication and like before I started doing the work, and before I started dealing with my insecurities that never got dealt with, and building self confidence, I subconsciously saw community as a threat.
Mm,
So aside from my closest college friends who really knew me so well, and now we're scattered about the world, so I don't really get to see them anymore. I never really built much of a community, except maybe other salespeople with the same vices as me. Um, so I always saw community as kind of a threat because I was insecure. So new people can essentially bring that out of me. So it makes me feel threatened essentially. So I would avoid community. But that um, now that I'm, in a better spot, and also that these 5 daily tasks are so life changing. Now I'm actually trying to teach them because it's just so simple. It's not easy, but it's so simple.
mm.
And so now I am actually seeking out community and feel welcome in myself and in any room. And it starts with self worth. You know.
Yeah, because it's hard to, love other people if you don't love yourself. So it seems like that's always like, oh, that seems so simple. It's like, well, it's not so simple. It's simple, a concept, but to actually do it,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work. Like if you got to get to that self love,
Hmm.
and then suddenly the world will, you can open up and you see things in a different light. The glass is not half empty; it's half full. And then you start to look at
Hmm.
things like, a lot of times people are into perfection, and to get to this perfection thing, and it's like, oh, I'm making all these mistakes. I'm terrible. Like I'm not up to par. Where if you
Sure.
have this kind of you embrace just this idea of letting things go. Like in a
Yeah.
lot of us, in like in music or art, is like if you have a happy accent, you let things go
Hmm.
through the flow state rather than
Yeah.
trying to
Right.
pre-map everything. You embrace like the moment and you realize like every moment is precious and every moment is different. It's like painting that layer
Hmm.
on a canvas. It's like what you did yesterday is probably not going to be what you do today and what you do tomorrow.
Hmm.
And it's not shouldn't judge it like which one was the best. It's like they're all in their own light.
Hmm.
And so if you start to like forgive yourself for your slights, like you're slighting yourself, and start to embrace like, I'm building myself up every day, and everything I'm learning, the lessons learned inform me to where I can be today, where I am tomorrow. Then you're
100%. Yeah.
more connected to the world instead of
Hmm.
being like me, like disconnected and you're outsider. Like, if you're not outsider, you're probably
Yeah.
gonna be more susceptible to addiction, right?
Certainly. Yeah. And you had brought up a couple of really good points. So it's the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And that comes from a book called Mindset by Carol Dwecker, which is a life changing book. So the fixed mindset people see failures failures in an activity as failures in themselves. So if I mess up a solo, then that means I'm forever a shitty musician. Um, and that's just obviously not the case. Perfection is the lowest standard of excellence. So it's really, yeah, really important to forgive yourself. But the most important thing is no amount of philosophy is going to get you out of it. You won't be able to outthink, or you won't be able to think your way out of this. Like you have to just stack wins on a daily basis, and you have to do stuff that's hard. And that's the only thing that's really going to build confidence in yourself is going out and physically doing things. It just I'm a really philosophical and psychoanalytical guy, and I tried to think my way into self-love, and it doesn't work.
Hmm. Yeah, you got to. There's a lot of steps on the rung to the top of where your game,
Hmm.
and a lot of people want, you see it on, all these people selling things. They're like, oh, I got this 5-step, 12-step, 20-step program
Hmm.
that you got magic pills, magic process. I do this, I'm going to hit $1 million. It's like, okay, it's like you really have to there's no quick fix, there's no magic pill. And
No.
we're in a society that's always looking for the easy way out. It's
Yep.
always looking for the I can just jump steps and I'm going to get from 0 to 100. Like anybody that ever gets anywhere, it's never going to be 0 to 100. Even if it looks like it, it was always a lot of different,
Yeah.
permutations of where they are. It didn't happen that way. They might want to tell you it did, but it
Well,
didn't.
lottery is the only example. Your success will never excel your personal development, whether it's financial, whether it's relational. And the only ones who go from 0 to 100 are people who win the lottery, and we know how that works
Yeah, they lose it
because
all the next day.
and it ruins their lives because they haven't developed themselves to be able to handle these forms of success. That yeah, if people, this is why a lot of millionaires say that if they lost it all, they wouldn't be worried. Some even hope that it would happen because the climb is so fun and enjoyable. But when you um, understand the process and really value the process more than the result, like I know I'll uh, eventually coach a lot of people and help a lot of people get off drugs and alcohol and better themselves. Early on in the business, I don't care. I don't even care. Like I'll even just, I mean, I could give it away for free if I had for the rest of my life if I had some other form of income that I enjoy. But it's because the process is going to be where you find the most pleasure.
Or the
Like,
journey. Yeah, the
yeah,
journey. And like it's the actual, it's not getting there, it's actually on the way there. Like
yeah.
that whole path, a lot of people forget. It's like, I've always like admired people say me like, I don't feel comfortable unless I'm treading water a little bit. Like Bowie actually said that
Hmm.
as always like he didn't feel comfortable unless he was treading water artistically
Yeah.
to kind of push it. And sometimes, like, if you get to your comfort zone, like, then you end up phoning it in, right? And then it's like, well, is it really fun to be just doing the same thing over and over, phoning it in? rather than pushing
Yeah.
yourself and
Yeah.
actually changing the game. And when you change the game, people won't like it. Like if you're like, Miles Davis, he's bebop master. As
Hmm.
soon as he switched to fusion, everybody in bebop is saying, "Well, that's not it. You're a Judas. What are you doing?" So as soon as you
Yeah.
change it and you're a master and you go in somewhere else
Yeah.
and say, "Well, why'd you do that?"
Yeah.
Because
Disruptor.
that's where you're gonna be. Like if you're in that kind of cutting edge, you're gonna get tired of doing the bebop.
Yeah.
You're gonna want to go to something like fusion.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the nature of the game.
Natural evolution for sure. Um, oh, there was something in there. Oh yeah. So when you had mentioned people wanting to stay in their comforts, like comfort is for sure the biggest killer. You should not want to be comfortable. Nothing grows at the mountaintop, like it grows in the valleys. So comfort is killing you in all of your, and it's also I've become very aware of how connected we all are, and then how connected we are through time. So we're either positively or negatively impacting everyone around us, and then
Mm.
their offspring, and then their offspring, and then their offspring. So I feel like through our technological advancements of the Industrial Revolution, and now into the technological revolution and informational, um, it makes sense that we've headed towards comforts. That makes sense because living outside without in the elements is for sure suffering, and we should develop to yeah, towards
Baseline level.
yeah. But these comforts, they should come with information like, hey, you're still going to want to put yourself through suffering, because this is why we have so much anxiety and depression in our society, is that everything's so easy, and that's good, but it messes with our reward system in our
Yeah.
brain.
Well, I think that's the danger of like AI and automation or robotics.
Hmm.
If you take like it's like the idea of the technologist is like, I'm gonna take all the kind of tedious tasks out of it.
Hmm.
I'm gonna take like if you're a researcher, I'm gonna take all that research tediousness if I actually have to go in the library, I have to go open the books, I have to do that.
Hmm.
But if you go and suddenly have a machine that can do it in milliseconds, something that took you 2 weeks to do,
Hmm.
there's something about the work you did in that 2 weeks that the computer you just got it in milliseconds. But the way your mind works, the way human beings work, is you need to actually go through that
Hmm.
because you're going to find these insights that the computer is not going to see. And
Sure.
if you go and make all these tasks totally just AI will just take it, the robots will just take it. How is anybody going to ever learn how to actually build a car or build anything? Because if everybody will forget how to actually do things and they won't know. And well, that's like tedious, and so they'll never know. And if the power goes out, how is society going to live if nobody knows how to actually do
Sure. Yeah, and that is kind of I have a more optimistic view on AI, and especially if you follow Elon Musk, Neuralink is designed um, to combine AI with our brains. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on better words, but either way. So um, if we are, man, once I get into the technology, I do. Wow, I need to work on my jargon for it. But if we have AI implants in our brain that are we're
it?
cooperating with the technology.
Yeah,
Um, that's how you would,
we can
avoid
level
just
up.
becoming
Yeah,
completely obsolete. But also, I kind of see all of these tedious tasks that AI will be able to do um, in a more optimistic way. Because what the example you described of like having to go spend 2 weeks, like let's say for law, like researching things, there isn't a whole lot in our evolution that was designed for stuff like that. I don't believe so. As AI, in my opinion, takes care of all of the tedious stuff, I think we're actually going to get back to our foundations of communal, um, yeah, having a positive impact on our community, because if we don't have jobs, but if all the resources we need are readily available, we all we have time for is to connect. And if everyone kind of starts to realize that, while capitalism and consumerism are kind of shoving negative things down our throats, bad food, alcohol, things like that. If which I still believe in capitalism and consumerism, so it's kind of our jobs to inspire each other to be better. But let's say we all do collectively continue raising consciousness. Um, we will um, yeah, move to other planets. We'll start.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you put your more work into thought work and like mindless consumerism, buying things that aren't good for you, aren't good for the
Mhm.
planet, if you
Yeah.
actually get things to, if you think about science fiction, you get to the world like in a Star Trek optimized world,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
ever watch Star Trek, the AI is there. And when
Hmm.
Spock is talking to the computer, that's AI, right? He's a brilliant like logical scientist, but he's using this computer that works hand in hand with him as a partner. And when
Yeah.
he's trying to
Exactly.
solve the problems, that's how you can use AI where you still have a brilliant scientist like a Spock, and then you have a ethics, guy who like Bones,
Yeah.
who's like judging things and saying, well, I don't want to do it that way. He still has a kind
Hmm.
of human mindset. And
Hmm.
then Kirk is like the adventurer.
Yeah.
He's so you still in that world,
Great.
the AI is there, and all
Hmm.
those type of personalities are there,
Yeah.
and they've gone to the point where people are able to be their better selves. They're traveling the galaxy trying to find new knowledge,
Hmm.
right? So that's kind of like the science fiction world is like that's an analogy to where human beings would all be like in this federation, always trying to
Yeah.
find a better self,
Yep.
like trying to get to your role. Like you can be whatever you want to be. You can be that
Hmm.
scientist, the anthropologist, the
Oh,
doctor, the
100%.
engineer, whatever. Where you don't have to just be mindlessly working in a box as a somebody just looking up research. My example,
Exactly. Yeah.
you could be
Yeah. Because
doing
that.
more than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that doesn't do a whole lot for your self worth. I mean, it's totally fair to earn a paycheck and to contribute in some regard like that. But yeah, very few of us get to be fulfilled by what we do. And oh, another thing too about how I can foresee it working with us in some way. So each day I try to eat 203 grams of carbohydrates, 158 grams of protein, and 40 grams of fat. So
Okay.
if every single person was tracking their macronutrients, how easy would it be for AI to know how much the right amount of foods to grow?
Yeah, it would actually
Or the
grow the right amount. Yeah.
exactly. So or the right amount of energy that we would use to so um, the synthesis of using AI in the future is going to be really dependent on our own habits as well, and how we
Well,
use them. So
it's a human beings tend to take tools. You can take nuclear capability, right? You can make a fusion reactor that could actually help
yeah,
the whole world, or you
or
can
a
make a
bomb.
fusion bomb.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the same thing with AI. You can be very productive and positive, but you could be
hmm
super destructive,
yeah,
right? It's like it's not all good. It's not all bad. It's like human beings are kind of the mystery factor because
and it
like
seems to be. Oh,
how you
go ahead.
use
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, it seems to be right on the cusp every time. So like the Industrial Revolution coinciding with World War I is really fascinating. Like how each time we take this really amazing step, it's also
Got
horrific in
path.
like equal every reaction or every force has an equal and opposite reaction, so it makes sense. But yeah, now we're on the precipice of either like an amazing utopia or full annihilation, and I honestly think that the deciding factor is going to be our own personal development. Like this is why every single person's personal development is like we're like a swing state, like every vote counts.
Yeah.
Like because when what this is what happens when whole populations operate from a low frequency. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles blamed Germany for the war, and an
Yeah.
entire nation
Was
was
down on
operating
themselves.
at shame and guilt. And what did we get? Yeah, what did we get when a whole population was feeling shame and guilt? We got the Third Reich.
Yeah.
So
Well, you get that kind of flip, like, because everybody can be, you can be like your advocate, or you can be somebody that like takes you out of here. Like you can be
yeah,
self-destructive, or you could be an illuminary, right?
hmm
So like that is in every human being.
yeah,
And so and it's at a microcosm level, right? An individual, and it's at a
hmm
macro. And this
yeah,
example, like with Germany, that's the macrocosm level of
hmm
being self-destructive, right?
yeah,
It becomes like a virus.
hmm
It says it becomes
yeah,
a humanity social virus,
yeah,
and it could go either way. And it's really about people's intentions. Like if you have a positive intention about your fellow man, then you'll go forward and have a communal mindset. If you have
hmm
like a negative intention, then
hmm
everybody's a threat. Like you said, everybody's a threat. If everybody's a threat, you're in a war footing,
yeah.
right?
You're
And
operating out
so
of fear.
you have to like not be in that war footing.
Yeah, no, I mean it's yeah, and people don't realize like I know I underestimated my value to my friend group and the people around me. I didn't see I was never in my eyes really hurting anyone just by being a drunk. But now I see that our actions are we're incredibly
Interconnected.
more valuable and have a larger impact than we think. And so that's just why it's really important for all of us to go on the journey of self mastery. And within that comes, this self like increasingly self forgiving um, version of ourselves too. So, all of my mistakes, all of the darkness and addictions and yeah, all the dark paths I walked, you know, I used to regret. I used to be filled with mostly regret. And now I'm incredibly grateful for them because that's so powerful to help others that are
Well,
coming
it's a
from the same.
resource. Yeah. You
Yeah.
have a resource that now you can mine
hmm
and actually like release your wisdom
Yes.
instead of thinking that something that's like actually destroys you.
Yes.
It actually is something that informs you. And not
Yeah.
only does it inform you, it forms your fellow man, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
when you can take that personal wisdom, and wisdom is not always all glorious. Sometimes
hmm
you have some wisdom about yourself that that could be embarrassing or could be like hurtful,
hmm
but that is still necessary to teach others, right?
Yeah.
So if you've gone down a path and you can prevent other people from going down that path and give them an option so they don't hit it, or they learn how to respond to if they hit it, that's super valuable. And
Yeah.
instead
Incredibly.
of thinking you're living in the shame of it, you live in the glory in this of it, to
Yeah.
actually take it. And the people who are in religion and faith, they kind of find that they you can see them, they take that and they use it all the time.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
there's other people like maybe outside of that, they start, well, how can I believe that and actually use that?
Yeah.
And it's really kind of like, there's a lot of things that cross different worlds, cross different
Yeah.
mindsets, and it could be useful even if you're not spiritual. You could
Yeah.
learn from somebody that is, and it's like, oh, I could actually use that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I certainly never had a problem with AA over like the God thing, for instance, and I'm not Christian. Yeah, there's so many different ways um, to jump the aisle. I forget the saying, but
Yeah, yeah, I get what
yeah,
you're saying.
it's all just think. I'm living a more selfless life. Like I pop out of bed each day at 3:30 because I'm grateful for the day, but I know that people out there need help. Like,
So you're
so
getting to it.
I
Getting to
yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I don't need as much sleep anymore. Part of that is for the excessive weight training. Rigorous, I guess, rather, weight training. But because that gives you a lot of energy. But then, yeah, to have this purpose of, okay, I'm gonna try to heal the world in the way that I was healed as well. It, in my eyes, it's the only meaning to life is to try to help others.
Well, as I indicated, I do have another podcast coming up, but I think we've
Sure.
had a really good conversation that's super useful to anybody. who's gone through these type of struggles, I do want to encourage people to check out your Instagram as a
Absolutely.
connection point we have for you, and that will be fully clickable when
Hmm.
we're published. And we were live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We'll be on all the major podcast platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast. By later today, we'll send you a landing page so people can pick
Perfect.
whatever platform they want. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a really great conversation. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
You too.